This podcast was brought to you by Skynet. Look, we didn't realize the robots would go berserk, okay? Hello and welcome to Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show with me, the Jonin Monkey.
And me, Sven the Crusader.
Indeed, we are now in the spirit of autumn or fall, depending on which part of the world you're in. And it is also the October show, so it's the Halloween special, where we don't make any spooky puns whatsoever. In fact, honestly, you should be lucky that we're reviewing Bleach live action this month, which kind of has spirits, so it's sort of Halloween themed, maybe, possibly if you squint hard enough.
We see dead people.
Yes, well, the main character of that film does anyway.
It's gonna be a wild month for a lot of reasons. It's so weird. All at once, Bleach has come rocketing back into my life, and I don't know how to feel about that. Because, well, we'll get into one reason, but the other is I really thought I was done. I really did. But it's like the Mafia. You think you're out, and then they pull you back in.
Well, on that very grim comparison, I mean, in fairness, I'm kind of the same way with Dragon Ball Z. I think I'm done, and then suddenly the Super Dub comes out, then Dragon Ball Fighters comes out, and then someone recommends me to a podcast called All Systems Goku, and I'm pulled back in.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, at least in your case, you can take solace in the fact that none of it is legitimately your doing upon yourself. I'll get into that.
Fair enough. But before we get into the live-action Bleach review, we now have to get through the filler, or as we like to call it, Q&A! This is the section where we answer questions from the audience. If you'd like to send us your questions, either leave them in the comments or send them to me via Twitter with the hashtag MBQuestion. Although I should say, this is kind of like that one show where the filler is actually a lot better than the main stuff, in fairness, so...
Yeah, I mean, this is always the highlight of the show.
Indeed, yes. Actually, you know what the best comparison is? It's like a WWE pay-per-view, where the WWE will insist that the main event is Roman Reigns versus whoever they're feeding to him, but everyone cares more about the mid-card matches that are happening around the middle.
We want Rusev versus Nakamura. They always put on good matches. Or another comparison that might be made is, it's like how the Bout filler arc in Bleach was about 1,000% better than everything that happened in canon from 2012 onward.
Oh, shots fired. But yeah.
Not very controversial shots. It's like Simo Heihei taking a shot at a still target from 100 feet away.
Also, speaking of which, since the last episode, we've received a comment from another fisherman, Luffy McDuck, who says, don't worry too much about mispronouncing Simo Heihei. The English doesn't even have the lovely letter A with an accent on it.
That is fair enough. I'll contend that we Americans are not... Well, we English speakers are not really equipped to handle Finland's amazing accented vowels.
Well, in fairness, if you're not hearing the audio, it is hard to know what the accent actually means. Like, I remember in Thunderbolt Fantasy, one of the biggest struggles with that was... It wasn't just the fact that the Chinese names didn't match up with the Japanese audio, which had a completely different set of names, but the Chinese names were accented, so I don't know if it's Shangbuhan or Shanbuhan or...
Yeah, it's funny. That's actually sort of how nobody really could figure out what Lua Long's name was actually meant to be in Sword of the Stranger until like 5 years later when someone confirmed it.
It's really confusing. But anyway, on to the actual questions.
Our first question, funnily enough, comes from Luffy McDuck.
Any indie game characters that you would like to see as playable characters in Smash Bros. In the future?
Oh, dear. Well, I would answer this question, but I don't play that many indie games, and the first one that comes to mind is Undertale, because I am homestuck trash. But I really don't want to see any of the cast of Undertale in Smash Bros, because how would you work that? How would that even be a thing?
I mean, I'm sure you could find some ways. I mean, you'd have to do what they did in Earthbound, which is pretty much give everyone's moveset to one character.
Actually, no. No. I take back what I said. Undine from Undertale.
Yeah, she would definitely work. I was just about to say, like, with all of her spear work and it's implied that she's a very rough and tumble personality anyway, as opposed to someone like Papayas, who's just sort of going along with emotions and trying to look cool.
Yeah, and plus, who would not want a Smash Bros. Remix of Battle Against a True Hero?
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. I mean, honestly, the only other person I would possibly include is Asgore, just because, I know he's kind of a semi-antagonist in Undertale, but I just freaking love everything about that character. Plus, again, a Smash Bros. Remix of Asgore.
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually with you, even though I do have very mixed feelings about Undertale.
Same.
It is like we, for one, there's the ending. We've been over that. And for two, it's like we transferred all of the worst elements of the Homestuck fandom and put them into another one. But that's another issue.
Yeah, it is. But, like I said, I don't have a problem with the characters themselves. It's just a lot of the fourth wall breaking nonsense and the cringy humor, in my personal opinion anyway. But yeah, those are good choices. The one I would choose is Shantae, just because female representation, but also you have a genie who attacks with hair and can transform into multiple animals. I think you could make a moveset out of that.
Yeah, I mean, if you can make the Pokemon trainer work.
I'm trying to think if there are any other indie characters, but most of the ones I can think of, they have nice personalities, but they're not exactly fighters. Like, I would love it if Turing from Read Only Memories was in there, but they're more of a great personality, not so much really a fighter. I mean, there was only one time they got into a scrap and, oh, the memories.
Not good ones, I imagine.
They were okay, eventually, but
okay, and I do believe that says all that needs to be said.
Yes, I haven't played that many indie games, I've only just started to get into it. I mean, I would suggest Shovel Knight, but A, he's an assist trophy in Smash, and B, well, he's already a playable character in Rivals of Aether and looks pretty awesome from that.
And again, I will hasten to add that I'm not a tremendous hipster who plays indie games all the time. That's not an insult, I'm just saying it's not really my thing. I stick to, like, 2 or 3 series that I know, 2 of which are Fallout and Fire Emblem, like all of Fallout and Fire Emblem. And, well, one of those is never going to be in Smash Bros. Ever. That would be insane, now that I think of it. And the other one is one of Nintendo's flagship franchises, so I'm not in a great position to answer this question.
Yeah, that is fair enough. Like, I've only just started getting into a bit more indie games recently, just to widen the field, but I haven't played enough to broaden the field. Like, I only know the really, really popular indie games like Shantae and Shovel Knight, although, now that I think about it, Robin from Iconoclast might also be a good fit, as they're a mechanic who attacks with a wrench, which would definitely fit the Smash Bros. Aesthetic. That said, the intense melodrama probably does not.
I don't know. Subspace Emissary.
No. This is, well, let me put it this way. Iconoclast is the first action platformer that sees multiple people breaking down due to psychological issues and many awkward family arguments.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's a platformer with all the wonderful traumatic effects of a JRPG.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm tempted now.
Yeah, those are the only ones I can think of, unless there was a game that was Rivals of Aether versus Smash Bros. Ultimate, which would be pretty awesome, but would sadly never happen, if only because, well, as much as I love Rivals of Aether and its wonderful cast of characters, they're kind of outnumbered, especially in Ultimate.
Yeah.
These 8 characters versus over 70.
These 8 characters versus Nintendo.
Yeah, it wouldn't last very long. It still would be cool, though, especially since, again, they're a platform fighter, they play very similarly.
Yeah, true enough.
And Luffy McDuck's second question is,
do you ever feel that there are too many games you would like to play? Because it's not enough having great new releases all the time. There also might be those hidden gems from a decade or 2 ago.
It's not so much that I think there are too many games for me to play, it's that there is not enough money in my checking account to play all the games that I want to play. I definitely devote time to playing all the games I've missed on all the new consoles, but, anymore a new console would cost me literally an entire month's pay with my current job, so that's not really a feasible thing for me to do.
Indeed. And in my case, it would be that I'm sort of fairly okay with the money. I can afford it, but to answer your question as simply as I can, yes! Oh my god, yes! Just so many games, so many people who recommended me, oh yeah, this one's got a good story. Hey, maybe you should review this one. And my response is, I want to, guys. I really want to, but do you know how many of these games have big open story modes designed to keep you in there as much as possible? It's either that or leave several games by the wayside. Like, I still have not finished Wild Arms 3, because there was a moment when I stopped, and then so many other games came out, and I haven't had the time to go back and finish it. Same with Saints Row 4. All of those are games I enjoyed, even if I was renting them in the case of Saints Row 4, and I wanted to finish them, but I just didn't have the time, because, again, Octopath Traveler was coming out, Xenoblade DLC was coming out, and yeah, there's only so much time, especially since with everything else going on, I can manage maybe about 2 hours of gaming a day at most. So yeah, time is a massive luxury for me.
Yeah, you work the more demanding job of the two of us, and you have editing and a ton of other shit to do, so yeah, I get it.
It was probably always the same. I think there probably was plenty of games being released. It's just with the advent of the internet, I think you're now more aware of all of those great games. You get all the recommendations from people, even if it's not directly, like you see someone in your Twitter feed going, oh wow, this game's amazing, and then you get people dropping in spoilers or referencing it for ages.
Yeah.
That's the long and short answer to that question.
Yeah, for me it's a matter of money, and for you it's a matter of yes.
There are many days where I wish I would have this superpowered time control just so I could actually do half the stuff I want to do with my life. I mean, it's not just video games, it's also Netflix series and wrestling shows I've been trying to keep an eye on. I mean, this might date the video horribly, but I was behind a few episodes of Lucha Underground, and then I check back and then I find out that Phoenix is a heel, Joey Ryan is a face, and now Marty the Moth Martinez is the champion. What? I only missed 3 episodes, how did that happen?
Yeah. It's like missing one WWE pay-per-view. I mean, not lately, because nowadays the titles change hands as often as Americans make good decisions. And I mean, Roman Reigns will always either be in a prominent feud or holding a championship. That's as sure as death and taxes. But, yeah, I know how that feels. You turn away for one pay-per-view and suddenly you're so confused the next Monday Night Raw.
But yeah, moving on to the next 2 series of questions, which are related to a certain franchise that has a new entry coming out this month.
Our next question comes from IZ.
What is your favorite generation of Pokemon?
3. Just 3. I know it's not the most popular choice, but there's a lot of nostalgia involved, and I feel like it was the last generation with almost no dud designs.
Yeah, I can certainly see that. I mean, the only really dud design might be that we have yet another Butterfly Pokemon and Beautifly and Dustox, but yeah, there were a lot of good Pokemon that came out of that generation.
I say that, but it is very close between 3 and 4 because, well, for one, nostalgia, and for 2, 4 was another one of those generally good generations. Like, I could believe the villain team, except for their complete jokes of mooks, had easily my favorite champion. Who doesn't love the infinite badass of Cynthia? And I really appreciated the fact that they made older Pokemon from Gen 2 actually usable in a team. Oh man, Gliscor, my love. Oh man, it's actually kind of hard to choose when you put it like that, because oh man, there's a lot of tempting choices. Like, in terms of just straight up Pokemon and designs, I would
I have to say that for me, it would either be Generation 3 or Generation 7, I believe it is, Pokemon Sun and Moon, because I did like a lot of the new designs that came with that. The Ultra Beasts were a bit weird, but they were okay for what they were meant to be. In terms of storytelling, it would definitely be Generation 5, because, well, everything about Black and White I love.
Yeah, I get you there, and purely on a storytelling basis, no generation stands a chance against Gen 5. It's just that was the generation that gave us the trash monster, and I don't even remember the name of the thing, but I'm just going to call it the idiot mudfish.
Oh, Stunkfish is the one I think you're referring to.
that one.
Yeah, I will admit, as much as I love Black and White and what it tried to do with a completely separate ecosystem, there were some designs that were a bit questionable, I will freely say that. Which is why it's not directly to the top.
Oh god, and Seismitoad. That thing haunts my dreams. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, that was another questionable choice. Oh god. There's a lot to like about the Sun and Moon generation mechanically. I love how Pokemon Fresh reworked. I do like the way the experience system worked, and I prefer it to Kalos generation just because they also managed to balance the difficulty so it wasn't ridiculously easy. But it's kind of hit and miss because in terms of storytelling, there were bits of it I liked, but then there were also some questionable choices, especially when you got into Ultra Sun and Moon, where there were bits they really dumbed down in irritating ways.
Yeah, go ahead and try to excuse Lusamine. That's a great idea.
Yeah, try to excuse her and then connect her motives to some ridiculous lore-building crap, because hey, why concentrate on writing good stories when we can write explanations to things that no one should give a toss about?
That's about accurate.
Yeah, I'm mainly stalling here just because I'm really having problems picking a generation, because there's bits I like about all of them. But I think, in a clutch call, I'm gonna say either Generation 4 or Generation 3, just because, you know what, I'll say Generation 4 just beats it out, because I think Generation 3 does have some slightly better Pokemon than Generation 4, but Generation 4 started laying the seeds for the stuff that I would like in future Pokemon games. It was using some more interesting visualizations of both storytelling and the world maps. Like, Generation 4 was the first time I really noticed that every town was starting to have its own unique feeling as opposed to a list of stuff you could do in it.
And I'll also add that, I'll go back to the villains, because even though the Team Galactic Mooks were god-awful and looked like if you crossed David Bowie groupie with a Beatles groupie, Cyrus laid the groundwork for Gen 5's villain, who is mortifying.
Plus also the physical and special split. That was a definite godsend in Pokemon mechanics, especially for Pokemon who had some weird stat choices, like Flareon having a massive attack stat, even though fire was special.
Oh man, okay, yeah. Now that you put it that way, that puts Gen 4 over the edge for me as well, because it made older Pokemon so much more interesting and varied and turned Togekiss into a god.
Honestly, the only knock against it I can think of is that Generation 4 gave us Rhyperior, but apart from that...
yeah, that's definitely what we needed, an evolved form of Rhyhorn with hideous orange accents.
Yeah. I mean, there's also Garchomp, which, oh dear god, that thing, but apart from that...
Oh, I will also say, Game Freak, thank you for giving us Gliscor, Mamoswine. Thank you for Garchomp, but that thing's just insane, and I don't know how to process that. And especially thank you for giving me the Magnus that is Togekiss, and the fabbest Pokemon that ever lived, Roserade.
Yes, indeed. Honestly, I still don't know how to process Garchomp, although the thing I'm also struggling to process is why the hell you gave that thing a Mega Evolution. I mean, if there was ever a Pokemon that did not need it.
It's like giving Aizen a super form. We'll get into that. But, yeah, I'll also say that Gen 4 has some exceptionally fond memories for me, like my first championship Championship opportunity. There's the wrestling fan in me speaking. My first championship opportunity against Cynthia. My accidental level 100 Flygon coming up against her Garchomp and getting absolutely demolished. Like, eaten alive. Level 100, and it meant nothing to Cynthia.
Yeah, that was just... whoa. She was a tough fighter. In fact, I think that was also one of the biggest pants-wetting moments in the Pokemon Black and White post-game, when you visit a resort town, walk inside one of the villas, and then piano music starts playing, and Cynthia starts walking up to you. It's like, oh god, no!
I was not prepared for this. I did not ask for this fate. And it's funny, because after Gen 4, my mindset was, okay, this is peak champion right here. You can't get more ridiculous than a level 66 Garchomp. In comes Alder, level 77 Volcarona. My first thought was, well, I'm dead.
Yeah, that was just... yeah.
Although, having said that, I would love to see a Pokemon battle between those two. Anyway, point is, Gen 4 is awesome.
Oh, at the very least, it's awesome for laying down the seeds for even better gens later down, but yeah.
Yeah, Gen 6 was not one of them, but that's another discussion entirely.
Yeah, I mean, it had some good ideas, but still. Anyway, Infinity Zero's second question is...
Favorite Pokemon in general?
This is gonna sound so weird. Or at least it would have if I had not qualified it with the previous question. Togekiss.
Just the ultimate stat god, is it?
Yeah, like that... oh god. That amount of speed, coupled with that amount of special attack. And plus, it's adorable. So you can essentially, more or less, nuke your opponents with a cinnamon bun.
Nice. Well, my main answer is Sandslash, just because it's one of those things where I know there have been better Pokemon since then, but there's something I love about the simplicity of its design. Although it looks more like a hedgehog, it's actually based on a Pangolian, which is like an armadillo-type creature, which is a bit weird, but still, I really do like the simplicity of its design, especially in Generation 5, when it actually got decent attacking moves like Swords Dance and Earthquake. So, yeah, Sandslash has always been one of my favourites for reasons I cannot even begin to explain. I guess it's just been an attraction to the design of it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's fair. I have a few Pokemon that are sort of like that, so I'm not going to judge.
I mean, if I was to give some runners-up, to get the obvious ones out of the way, Charizard and Blaziken, just because I like dragons and superpowered fighting types, and some others would be Go-Goat, just because Grassy Goat, and Staraptor, because that was one of my favourite Pokemon in Gen 4.
Yeah, also, to be fair, one of the collection of the few starter flying types that is perfectly viable until the endgame. Speaking of runners-up, this is probably going to contain a ton of names from Gen 4 because I loved the additional evolutions, but I'll try and give a top 5. Togekiss, Sceptile, Gliscor, Roserade, and lastly, even though it has about the speed of the Big Show, Vikavolt is badass.
Ah, yes, that was a cool one. Also, it's one of my favourite electric types that was introduced in Gen 7, Togedemaru, because, oh my god, that thing was adorable.
Yeah, I feel ya. Our next question comes from Toon Junkie, and I cannot believe he issued this question for this episode, because his question is,
whatever happened to the Hollows in Bleach after the plot shifted over to Ichigo's adventures in the afterlife? Invisible monsters that eat people seems like a real big problem that really shouldn't be ignored, don't you think?
Short answer, yes. Second answer, Kubo is mad.
I think the long and short of it is, like, it implies that there are less important Soul Reapers who go out and deal with the invisible monsters, whilst the higher-ups are all chasing after the invisible monsters that have turned into Mexican samurai. But,
What a phrase! That's like a phrase straight out of New Japan.
True, but let's be brutally honest, that is exactly what they are.
Yeah, I mean, it's Soul Reapers with a Spanish flair.
Yeah, I don't know why Kubo decided that all the Hollows had to have Spanish names or a Spanish flair to them, especially the Arrancar, but it happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he decided that the factions had to be neatly divided by nationality. You had the Soul Reapers, who were naturally based on Japan. The Hollows were based on Mexico/Spain. You had the Fullbringers, who, for some reason, all had really, really badly translated to Japanese, American English names for all of their Fullbrings. And then you had the Quincy's, who were Nazis. I mean Germans.
Well, yeah, let's be brutally honest here. The Quincy's were, at least the ones that posed as the final villains, were definitely visually inspired by Nazis.
Yeah, a little awkward, but hey, at least they were villains, I guess.
True. That is true. And I don't know what about the Arrancar. I guess maybe it was trying to be Mexico Festival of the Dead stuff. I really don't know.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I liked the theme, I can't quantify it, but then again, I can't quantify a lot of the stuff that comes out of the mind of the man known as Titty Kubo. And as for what happened to them, I'll explain this in the way I explain Roman Reigns' push. People always wonder how wrestlers' careers, big indie darlings, just get buried once they go to Raw, and my answer is always Roman Reigns happened to them. What happened to the Hollows in Bleach was Ichigo happened to them. That's it.
Yeah, pretty much. Ichigo / the latest villains showed up because eventually Kubo got bored writing Monsters of the Week stuff and then just started having, well, you could call them sword fights, but all of the swords had such weird effects that they stopped actually being swords after a while.
Yeah, and to use a tabletop role-playing term, Kubo always had this problem of having all dungeons and no roleplay. Let's put it that way. Like, there was no downtime, and the lore that he included was slapdashified to hell and back. By which I mean he did the Masashi Kishimoto thing of including last-minute backstories to try and convince us that we should pity certain villains.
Honestly, I think that he started that way for the Soul Society and Wacko Mundo arcs, but then just became the sort of DM that just made combat encounter after combat encounter after combat encounter because he couldn't actually be bothered to design the traps or layouts of the places.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. That's basically what happened. And more or less, the Hollows fell victim to that. They sort of got pushed to the wayside, I don't know, because Kubo got tired of writing that particular outfit and got thrown aside for the Quincy. And I'll be bluntly honest, they had potential, but give me the Arrancar any day because they had personalities beyond mwahaha, mwahaha.
And the last question also comes from Toon Junkie, and it's more than his usual flair.
Is the colour purple just the colour blue that's trying too hard?
I think it might be the color blue that aspires to wealth.
Considering that purple was once the most expensive colour in the world, yes, definitely.
It's blue with hopes and dreams.
Indeed.
What a phrase. What a phrase.
I mean, to steal the joke from Forward Head, I think the one time blue is trying too hard is when you try to find some black clover only to discover that it's very, 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 very dark blue.
So, edge blue.
More or less, yes. And with that, we end on Blue being both edgy and aspiring to something greater.
I want everyone as a thought experiment to just replace the connotations of black with blue instead. Like, we associate black with, goths and metal bands and Johnny Cash. Basically, dark stuff. But imagine if blue was in that place. Imagine WWE superstar Aleister Blue. Oh, God. Oh, God.
Oh, God. It's these evil aliens, the Blue Arms.
Your soul is as blue as night.
In brightest day, in bluest night. No,
my personal favorite mental image, summoning the eldritch horrors of Cthulhu with a blue grimoire.
No, you cannot possibly tap into the blue magic.
Yeah. You're gonna have a lot of fun with that. And I don't know how we got here, but now I guess Blue really is trying too hard because we forced it to try too hard.
In fairness, it was trying too hard with that one European techno song that came out in, what was it, 90s, early noughties?
I'm Blue Dabba-Dee, you know. just to end this Q&A section the right way, it's time for me to admit something. I don't just own that song, I own the whole album. I bought it in 1999
Nice.
with my allowance as a 7-year-old, and I still have that album, and I listen to it as a guilty pleasure, even though Eiffel 65 disappeared years ago.
Well, in fairness, I really dig Pelakay's metal cover of it, and
Rude. So do I.
Also, I will freely admit that as a child, I bought the cassette tape which had the entire Power Rangers discography on it, including all of the goofy tracks on it. Call the 541. We need a hero. What was the? Yeah, it was Green Ranger Go. I believe was one of them as well.
Oh man. And meanwhile, I'm just thinking back, and I remember distinctly that the album that I was listening to nonstop, back to back, at the time I met you, was Blue Dabba-Dee by Eiffel 65. So, in a weird way, if not for Blue Dabba-Dee, we would not be here. We would not be here right now answering this question, and that really seems like the ultimate answer to this question.
Indeed, yes. So, whatever the original question was, thank you very much everyone who sent us these questions.
And thank you especially for Toon Junkie for being consistently mad for the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Although many other people have been trying to be just as mad. In fact, I've got enough unique questions from Luffy McDuck in Infinity Zero that if I wanted, we could have an entire Q&A session of madness. But anyway.
We should do that sometime. We could call it the March Madness. Anyway, point is, thank you all. Please keep them coming.
Indeed, yes. But now, it's time for us to move into the next section, which is
Reviews!
This is the section where we review something we've read, watched, or played this month. In my case, it's watched. I don't know if Sven wants to add anything, or if he is content to just share this one, because I know it's a series that, well, I was about to say near and dear to his heart, but it's more a series that we won't stop talking about.
It's like an old friend who has made so many mistakes in their life that you can't help but feel a permanent state of exasperation toward them, but they're still your old friend, and some of the memories are too nice to completely abandon them. That sounded way more sentimental than I intended it to be, but it's sort of what it comes down to. I have reasons to love Bleach, but the overarching series makes me feel a pain that runs deep to the hollow holes of my soul.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I do feel the same way about Dragon Ball, and I used to feel the same about Rurouni Kenshin, but I'll give TD Kubo this. At least he's not a pedophile.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. I question his character design sometimes. Like, what the was Halabel meant to be wearing? But, or should I say, what is she not wearing? But I guess at least he has that.
Although, it's a small consolation prize because him and his creation, the long-running shonen manga series Bleach, runs alongside Kishimoto's Naruto and George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones as punchlines we decide to bring up whenever we need a bad series to use.
I mean, it's true. I'll admit I'm not as bitter toward Bleach as I am toward Game of Thrones, because Bleach is stupid. Game of Thrones is offensive to the soul.
Oh, yeah. The reason why we're talking about Bleach in 2018 is because recently on Netflix, and by recently I mean at the time of recording, like about 7 or so days ago, a live-action movie was finally released. This is something that's been in the pipeline for a while, and to be honest, when I first heard that it was on Netflix, my initial reaction was,
Oh, God.
I don't entirely hate Bleach, but I was just done. I was ready to move on, you know? But it's one of these things that it's a long slew of anime that have been remade for Netflix recently, all of which in live action, and this isn't a process that's met with great success so far. The Death Note movie tried to essentially do an American retelling of the story Death Note, and it had some good ideas, but it chose to make the plot overly complicated for the sake of twists, and a lot of people say it doesn't really hold true to anything about the characters, really.
Yeah, I will say this. Pros, Willem Dafoe as Ryuk. Oh my god. Cons, you couldn't just let a Japanese studio develop it. Really? I'm taken back to my 4Kids days.
Well, unfortunately, that doesn't necessarily guarantee quality, because there was also the Full Metal Alchemist live-action movie, and...
Oh god, there was... Why? That's a series I still remember fondly. Why?
Yeah, I was gonna mention some of the awkward gifs that have been floated around of some of the really bad effect shots, like with Gluttony, but you know what? Sven's reaction summed it up perfectly.
I'm glad to have been of service.
This live-action movie, I decided, you know what, I'll sit down. If there's nothing on this month, it will at least make for something to review and have a laugh about, and it was actually pretty okay. It's, still has problems, don't get me wrong, but it's actually fairly enjoyable. First off, just to double check, Sven, have you seen this movie yourself?
No, I have not, but I presume that I'm familiar enough with the story that I'll know what's going on.
Indeed, yes. In fact, just before we get started, would you please give us the premise of Bleach, given in mind that this movie, in terms of arc, rather than trying to cover everything, which, thank God, that would be a really stupid idea given how long the series ran for.
No kidding! Oh god, and I thought the Harry Potter movies were bad.
Yeah, this movie decides to focus on, well, its main title is Bleach Live Action, but there is the subtitle of Soul Reaper Agent Arc, so it covers everything up until the beginning of the Soul Society arc. So, with that in mind, could you, Sven, give us the basic premise of what exactly Bleach is, apart from the detergent?
Okay, so Bleach is a mess, but to put it more eloquently, it is the story of, sort of semi-undead spirit warriors called Soul Reapers, and the tale of a young man named Ichigo Kurosaki who is thrown into the position of becoming one, and subsequently fighting off the forces of the evil spirits in the world known as Hollows. I leave it at that because I do believe that's all that needs to be known for this movie. The rest of Bleach would take me a dissertation.
Yeah, it kind of gets needlessly complicated, but like I said, thankfully, this movie is a bit more focused in that it concentrates on everything that happens from during the beginning of Ichigo's Soul Reaper days. Well, actually, it begins with a flashback, more specifically, how Ichigo's mother died. And what's actually really curious about this is that if you're a Bleach fan, you instantly see it and go, oh, cool, okay, I know where we're going with this. Because it happens exactly the same way. Like, Ichigo and his mother are walking in the rain. Ichigo, who is a child at this stage, sees a young girl down by the river and goes, oh, she looks lovely by herself. I'll go and see how they are. The girl turns round. She has a really scary look at her face. And what I do actually like as an opening is that it instantly cuts there. It's definitely a creepy atmosphere, but they don't reveal what it is just yet, which, yeah, nice effective start, especially when it instantly cuts to credits, rock music starts playing, and they do this like really cool superimpose shot where there is a sword traveling across the screen, but it's filled with found ghost footage, you know, with objects mysteriously moving, windows shattering and the like, which, okay, that is an effective opening for a Bleach movie. And from there, it pretty much begins exactly the same way as the first chapter of the manga and the first episode of the anime. We meet up with Ichigo and his family. His father doesn't drop kick him, but he does put him in a chokehold, so, you know.
Coquina clutch out of nowhere. Sorry.
Yeah, pretty much that, yeah. So, just like in the manga, Ichigo retires to his bed for the night, but then a Soul Reaper named Rukia leaps into his room, tracking down a Hollow because she assumes that Ichigo can't see her. Ichigo can see her, so he starts picking a fight with her. The Hollow then arrives. Rukia tries to defend Ichigo and his family, but the Hollow manages to land a grievous injury on her, and so she sees the only way to defeat the Hollow is to give Ichigo half of her power so that he can become a Soul Reaper and fight. The only slight difference is they had the extra twist that Ichigo might die during the whole process, so he has to actually think about it rather than just instantly accepting. But yeah, otherwise it plays out exactly the same. He becomes a Soul Reaper, he kicks ass, and he wakes up assuming he can go back to his life. However, there was a problem. Because Ichigo has what's known as a high spirit pressure, instead of taking half of Rukia's powers, he took all of it. As such, Rukia cannot go back to the home of the Soul Reapers, the Soul Society, so she forcibly recruits Ichigo as a substitute Soul Reaper. At least that's what the premise was in the manga. In the movie, just to give it a bit more of a focus, they've changed it so that Rukia can get her powers back from Ichigo, but at the moment, whilst he has high spirit pressure, the subtitle is his energy is too low, but it's implied what they actually mean he doesn't have enough control over his energy, so he can't actually successfully do the transfer process in the reverse direction. So she essentially forces Ichigo to be a Soul Reaper in order to do her work of taking out Hollows, but also to improve his strength to the point where he can actually give the powers back.
Huh. That's weirdly sensible. I say weirdly because it's Bleach.
And so the rest of the movie proceeds from there. Rather than doing the Monster of the Week stuff, it decides to focus a bit more on the Grand Fisher, because that was the Hollow that in the series, it was eventually revealed that was what killed his mother. It's called Grand Fisher because it uses a kind of weird lore that looks like a human in order to trick people into, well, being killed. It's kind of like a creepy version of an anglerfish in that way.
Yeah, essentially it's a creepypasta. Really, with my modern conscience, that's the best way I can describe it. Think the horrifying tales of skinwalkers luring people in with the voices of the people they love. That's all I'm going to say on skinwalkers, because if I say any more, I will reveal my true nature as a masochistic nightmare fetishist who reads creepypastas all the time.
Yeah, that's the basic premise of the movie starting out, and yeah, because it was a weekly comic strip / anime, there is still a lot of content within this arc. So, Sven, as a, well, maybe Bleach fan is a strong word, but
I'll call myself a follower. Like, I'm a follower of WWE, even though I am not a fan of their booking decisions.
Yeah, as a follower, what do you feel we should focus on, and what do you think we should cut?
I mean, it's hard to say, because the opening few arcs of Bleach were super good. I'm glad that their focus is on Grand Fisher, because that makes sense as a main antagonist. As for what should be cut, that's very difficult to say, because a lot of important stuff happens in this first arc, including what little fleshing out Ichigo's friends actually get.
Yeah, I can definitely see your viewpoint from there. They did have to make some cut out to a lot of stuff. They did cut out, unfortunately, the Hollow that turned out to be Orihime's brother, which I guess that makes sense. Same with Chad defending that parakeet with a boy's soul from the other Hollow, because, again, they were nice developing character points, but this is a standalone movie, so you don't really need to include that stuff from week to week. And they've also cut out Kon, which makes sense because, again, Kon, he was like he was sort of amusing comic relief for a while, but yeah, he became completely superfluous to the story. Same with Don Konochi, the weird exorcist, he's been cut out. And that's it.
Wow.
Everything else has been included, for better and for worse. Like, you cut out the big stories that develop Chad and Orihime, you still keep Chad and Orihime, even though they have nothing to do with the plot, but you've gotta have them.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, that sorta seems like part and parcel for Bleach.
Yeah.
You keep them even though they have no point.
Yeah, and in fact, I'm only going to steal one joke from other reviews, but I had to include this because it was a line from Rolo T in Weekly Manga Recap's Patreon review of this, but it was just so perfect. He said that there is one scene that is 100% faithful adaptation of Bleach. There is a moment when Chad and Orihime are watching Rukia train Ichigo, and then Urahara, yeah, he's in this movie, Urahara pops up and says Ichigo is preparing for the battle of his life. He might not be able to do it. At least, not alone. And then walks away. And nothing comes of that scene in true Bleach fashion.
Oh my god. Okay, that's bad, but I can laugh at it because it's classic. That is what I expect from this series.
Yep.
It's like expecting a Wheeze subtitle from BuzzFeed Unsolved. You know it's coming, and at this point it's so endemic to what you're watching that it needs to happen, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. In fact, I mean, honestly, all it really comes to is that Chad and Orihime kind of, sort of, but not really see Ichigo in Soul Reaper form, and then they evacuate some people from a burger joint, and that's really about it. Oh, and Chad blocks a bit of rubble.
Yeah, what's funny is I'm pretty sure I saw that exact shot-for-shot scene in a Bleach AMV I watched today. But, yeah, I mean, it's so perfect. It's the condensation? Yeah, the condensation of Bleach. You include plot threads and build up characters for no reason.
Yeah, like, I really don't know what the movie was going for. Like, I've seen some arguments that they're trying to do the whole cinematic universe thing of, oh, we might get more films, so we're setting them aside for later. In which case, I would say, guys, you haven't actually seen how your first movie did. The second thing is that I've also heard that apparently, in contrast to Hollywood, which often takes the approach of, well, people don't know this property, so we'll try and make it appeal to a mass audience as possible. I've heard that sometimes Japan, with their live-action adaptations, have a mentality of, well, only fans are gonna see this, so let's include stuff for the fans. And if it is that second one, I think it is ultimately to its detriment, because two weird things happen around the half-hour point. The first is, well, you're just about quickly re-establishing everything about the new premise from here on out and the basics of Ichigo and Rukia's relationship at the beginning. And then, at one point she goes to visit Urahara to get a battery for her ghost device. And then Urahara says, "Are you absolutely sure about this? You do know that you could be executed if anyone finds out what you're doing." And then, instantly, we cut to Renji and Byakuya.
Okay. 30 minutes in?
Yeah, 30 minutes in this hour and 45-minute movie, they are instantly brought up, and it's kind of weird that their main fight still appears at the end of the movie, but they are constantly showing up throughout the movie just to provide an overall sense of threat. Because literally after they see, they have them talk amongst themselves, they leap from 1 to 12 in their deductions of, we haven't heard from Rukia in a while. There's absolutely no way she would lose to a hollow like Fishbone D. She must have given her powers to a human. It's like, wait, what? How did you get that?
How do you reach that conclusion?
And to top things off, not only do they leap to that conclusion, the next scene is Ichigo is walking home from school, and then he instantly met by Renji, who, their conversation is more or less along the lines of, so, you're the one Rukia gave her powers to. What's a Reaper? Don't play dumb with me.
Wow. Okay. I guess that's one way to allude to the Soul Society arc really badly.
It's really confusing because I'm in like two minds about this. Because on the one hand, it's definitely not playing straight with the story. It does actually lead to some cool adaptational differences, which I'll get to in a moment. But it is one of those things where, yeah, like you're thinking, hang on a minute, was there any need to include this? Especially when how that scene ends, Ishida pops out of nowhere and starts attacking Renji, which gives Ichigo the chance to run off. And admittedly, this scene is actually done very well, because you don't know it's Ishida right away. You just see several arrows shoot out of the darkness to attack Renji, who then responds with his guts, Quincy. And that's kind of left an ominous note. Those who haven't seen it before go, oh wow, I don't know what this is. What could this possibly be? And people who have seen the series before go, oh wow, it's Ishida. Wow, I wonder what role he's going to play in this. The next scene is Ichigo eating lunch at school, and Ishida just walking up to him and going, oh hi Ichigo, you're a Soul Reaper, aren't you? Which leads to Ichigo doing a rice spit take.
Okay, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I relate to Ichigo. Those are words I never thought would leave my mouth.
Oh god, and I will say, one of the positives right now, which I swear I am going to get into at some point, is that both Ichigo's writing and his performance by Sota Fukushi is really, really good and actually really endearing, especially when it almost seems like it's rebelling against the bad writing at some points, because this leads to one of the worst points of the movie that's only outdone by one other point, which I will get to in a moment, where Ishida takes Ichigo to a rooftop and essentially reads him his Wikipedia article. Like, he just goes, my name is Ishida, I am a Quincy, the Soul Reapers killed my people, I came here through your spiritual pressure, so that I can prove that the Quincy's are in fact a better exorcists than Soul Reapers. And Ichigo's response is, okay, this is getting way too complicated.
Man, that makes me both happy and sad, because it reminds me that there used to be reasons to like Ichigo.
Yeah, admittedly, I can't talk about full-on acting because I don't understand Japanese, and as I've established on the show, just because someone sounds right with their screaming and emoting, it doesn't necessarily mean they're a good actor.
You are lying! I never hit you! You are tearing me apart, Lisa!
But in terms of physical performance, I would say that this guy makes for a really good Ichigo, especially with some of the comedy elements like the rice spit take I mentioned before.
Yeah, I feel like that's sort of necessary to the character, because at the start of Bleach, before he became Roman Reigns, Ichigo was sort of the what the hell is happening to me protagonist. Like, he was the spit take protagonist, and that was sort of his appeal. So the fact that it's played up here, it does my heart good. Like I said, it reminds me that in terms of protagonists, Ichigo may never have been better than Naruto, but he stood an equal footing because he had a character back in the day.
Indeed, he was sort of a punk with a heart of gold, but also, like you said, he was sort of the fish out of water in this, like, strange world of crazy powers. For some reason, one line that comes back to me is, a freaking cat just spoke to me.
Yeah, that's pretty much a sum of his life.
And it also really works here because, I don't know whether it's because they're trying to sell this movie as serious business or because they were trying to keep it more consistent with the tone of later Bleach, but a lot of the quirky comedic elements, or at least the cartoonish over-the-top ones, are toned down. It's mainly up to him, Rukia, and occasionally his father, Ishin, to provide the comedy. In fact, one of my favourite scenes in terms of comedy is fans of the original series will remember this, when Rukia reveals that because she has nowhere else to go to in the human world, she is sleeping in Ichigo's closet. He's talking to Rukia in the closet, and then Ishin walks in, forcing Ichigo to hurriedly shut the closet door. And he goes, Ichigo, I heard you talking to someone up there. Is everything okay? And Ichigo goes, yeah, that's fine. There's absolutely nothing going on here. Standing in front of the closet to make sure he can't open it. And Ishin smiles, nods, then karate chops Ichigo and throws him aside.
That's Ishin. Yeah, the constant New Japan Pro Wrestling match that is Ichigo's home life.
Indeed. There are individual moments that are either really good, faithful recreations of moments from the manga, or just little nice moments from there, but the best way I can describe it, it's like small tropical islands in the middle of whitewater rapids, because the movie is so desperate to cram every action scene in and every character in and get the plot to where it's needed to be, that there will be moments when you're just watching the car and going, oh my god, what's going on? Oh yeah, this is really nice, we're really focused and centered, and I'm really liking both the direction and the atmosphere of this and the physical performance. Oh my god!
Yeah. That was me in the later arcs of Bleach. Well, actually, specifically the Hueco Mundo arc, because you'd have nice, quiet moments of development, followed by spine unplugging action on the next page.
Yeah, it got really weird at all. Although, if we're going to be absolutely faithful to Bleach, it would be arm dismembering action in the middle of...
Yeah, it really would be. How many arms were casualties of Bleach? Anyway, moving on.
Oh, it gets even worse. There is a series which I was tempted to do a review of, but at the moment it's just a singular one-shot. A potential follow-up series called Burn the Witch, which... Oh my god, it was not good, and it was also bizarre to me because... Kubo decided the first thing he was going to do was set it in England, which, if you ever wanted to see, TC Kubo's interpretation of England, then oh dear god.
I wonder how it stacks up to the interpretation of England and Black Butler.
Oh god. But the reason I bring it up is because one of the characters is put into a dangerous situation, and how do we see that they're in a dangerous situation? Arm dismemberment. It's a really weird thing.
Okay, if I may edit a quote from Red vs. Blue. Kubo, what is your problem with arms? You're giving your characters grievous bodily arm. That is a terrible pun. But I regret nothing, because in this situation, it's so ridiculous it suits.
Indeed. But, yeah, there was actually a halfway point where the problems intensify, and then it slowly starts to get better, because, like I mentioned, the middle part is a bit of a slog, where you get the occasional good moment, but otherwise you're constantly dragged on through this insane plot, with moments that happen because they're in the manga, and for no other reason. They do the whole thing where Ishida challenges Ichigo, he breaks a hollow mint bait thing in order to attract hollows to their location, but it ends up being of no consequence because Ichigo managed to sort of take on one hollow, and then the rest of them all were taken care of by Byakuya and Renji.
Fair enough. Also, you say that, the middle part is sort of a slog where you're dragged along through an insane plot, so it's Bleach.
Yeah, pretty much. It admittedly picks up again, because they do drop one other twist, because at this moment, because Rukia is more plain about her motivation that she's only training Ichigo to get back to the Soul Society, you can understand why Ichigo is a bit apprehensive to help her, but they also throw in the twist that part of the reason why they're so quick to be a bit more judgmental of Rukia is because what Rukia said wasn't entirely true. Ichigo doesn't need to get high spiritual power, energy, whatever, in order to complete the transfer. It's only to complete the transfer without him dying. So from their point of view, it's like, Rukia, come on, just transfer the power back into yourself, you'll be pardoned, just kill the boy. It's revealed that Rukia is actually risking everything to make sure that Ichigo comes out of this alive.
Okay, yeah, that is true to Rukia. And I really appreciate it, because she was shoved to the wayside, but she was always the major character I liked the most. And that's just right in line with something she'd do. It's also right in line with the Soul Society being colossal pricks. That's sort of a running theme throughout the series, and it's never really addressed beyond the first few arcs.
Indeed, yes. In fact, this was something they do focus on in this movie, with Renji even saying to Rukia at one point, "It's disgusting that you look so human right now."
Wow. Wow, okay. That's so Soul Reaper that it's surreal.
But yeah, unfortunately from that point it then delves into yet more chaos again, because there's like this whole random subplot that goes nowhere where Rukia disappears for a brief moment, and it ends up becoming a lot like later Bleach, in that they bring up plot points which either so convoluted they don't really make that much sense, or there are moments that go, hang on, what? Why are you just glossing over this? Like, the biggest one offender that happened halfway through the movie that made me think, okay, this is getting kind of ridiculous now, is when Ichigo, confused about where Rukia is, decides the best person to ask is Ishida. Because I don't know. He then runs over to a burger bar where Ishida's just hanging out, because, again, I don't know. And Ishida says, I don't know, but maybe you can talk to a man named Urahara. He runs a shop and he is an ex-Soul Reaper. Why Ishida knows this, I don't know, but we rush over to Urahara, and then Urahara goes, she's probably gone to the Soul Society in order to try and plead a case for you to be pardoned. And Ichigo goes, how can I get to the Soul Society? And Urahara goes, well, there are many portals throughout the city. I think the closest one is. And then it cuts, and it gets to a scene where Rukia is essentially doing just that, bowing in front of Renji and Byakuya and trying to desperately plead a case where they'll take her back but keep Ichigo alive. And then Ichigo bursts into the scene and starts making demands, which let me think.
Excuse me, what?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I was thinking, no, wait, hang on. Are we outside of the portal, or are we in Soul Society? Because if it's in latter, you really need to make a big deal out of this. Ichigo's just crossed over to the freaking afterlife, for crying out loud. Are we not going to mention the significance of this at all?
Crosses over to afterlife, kicks down door, starts making demands. That sounds like the Ichigo I know.
I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong, it's fully in character. It's just that the movie, it treats it like, oh yeah, it's just down the road. Ichigo would probably find it. It doesn't seem to raise the... Well, A, it doesn't clarify whether it is the Soul Society, or B, doesn't mention the big significance of this.
Big serious scene. I think the nearest portal is cut to this huge confrontation behind the closed doors of an unsuspecting library study room.
Yeah, it is really, really weird. And then what makes it even weirder is that the scene then decides to rework the subplot so that Ichigo makes a bet with them that if he can become strong enough to kill Grand Fisher, then that means both him and Rukia will be pardoned. Which kind of adds another element to the conflict that is, well... In a way, it kind of diminishes from the personal conflict that Grand Fisher is the one that killed Ichigo's mother, but at the same time... I don't know, it's one of those things I'm 50-50 about. I know it's a deal breaker for a lot of people because they say the Grand Fisher became a subplot in his own movie. But it's like you said earlier, a lot of the Hollows, while their designs were cool, their motivation was pretty much just, bro, ha 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 ha.
Yeah, the Arrancar had personality, but they came in later. The Hollows are just... They're mooks. They are evil mooks that serve as plot devices. There's nothing wrong with that, but they're not interesting.
And Grand Fisher, again, aside from the personal connection with Ichigo, he doesn't really have a personality to back it up. Now, granted, I still don't like the way he died in the manga, which, Sven, do you want to explain to the audience what happened in the manga?
Well, he was defeated by Ichigo, joined Aizen's army of Arrancar, became an Arrancar, and then was killed in a shock twist at the hands of Ishin, who turned out to be a Soul Reaper.
Yeah, not exactly the greatest end for him.
Yeah, just, oh, you're important to the plot. You, bye.
Yeah, that was kind of one of the many, many missteps of the series, but...
But then again, that just fits in with the way they treated that whole plot line with Ichigo's mother in the first place. Oh yeah. God, Kubo. Oh God.
Yeah, I'm just kind of glad that we're in the early stages so I don't have to think about the retcons of that, because, oh dear God.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad we're in the early stages so I don't have to think about anything about the Sternritter arc.
Yeah, just, oh God.
Put it in the books, folks. Nazis ruin everything. What a twist.
But yeah, it's also kind of hard to take some of these random action scenes that are happening with some Hollows that are happening around at this time, because well, I've been goofy at it before I get to the positives, which I swear do exist.
Well, we've been talking about them. We've been exceptionally fair by our standards of Bleach.
During a lot of these action scenes, they have a theme song for Ichigo that kicks in, which is by the band Alexandros, which has unfortunately kind of become a joke amongst people who have watched it. Now, the thing is, in terms of the title song, it's actually a perfect fit because it's still a punk rock song with sort of, I don't know if it is actual rap, but it's the kind of rapish lyrics you get in some rock songs. It's kind of prog rock would be the best way to describe that genre, and it definitely fits, especially since in response to the live-action movie, Tite Kubo released the songs that he considers to be the themes of each and every character. And you've got, I believe, Ichigo's theme in Tite Kubo's mind was News from the Front by Bad Religion.
Yes. That list, by the way, is a whole roster of hilarity by itself, because I recognize a lot of the songs and bands on that list, and the places where they fit in are absolutely hilarious. But point is, that's Ichigo's theme.
The problem is, when it initially starts, the guitar with the rock kicks in, and then you get all the sound of the action sequences, and you get some, I'm looking at the opening lyrics here, and you get some nonsensical old lyrics that just sort of blend in, but still add to the fairly kick-ass atmosphere. And the lyrics are in English, by the way, where they go, "Our life is not sweet, we fight to be free, we dance on the beat, and there it goes." You know, that kind of thing. It's doesn't really mean anything, but it sounds really cool in the fight scenes. The problem is, the way the song goes, there's like this big opening bit where they do this whole hard rocky verse, and then they do this bit where there's like a lot of rock songs do this, where you will have the baddest line right here, and then the instruments drop, and then suddenly kick back in with the dun-dun-dun-dun of the drums.
Yeah.
And they do this a lot during the action scenes, where in order to accompany this drop, a lot of the diegetic sound will at least be quietened, or at least it'll be a moment when Ichigo's pulling back before about to land a big strike. Unfortunately, the lyrics before you drop are...
All you gotta do is drink all your milk.
What? Hulk Hogan, where did you come from?
Which, it would be an odd moment in itself, but the problem is, they were so proud of this song, they use it 4 more times, including the end credits. It's just...
I just expect Hulk Hogan to just come back and talk about eating your vitamins, or maybe Ultimate Warrior talking about his spaceship.
Milk. 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 All you gotta do is drink all your milk.
Okay, one more joke from the Weekly Manga Recap Patreon review of this. Nicholas Freeman adding on extra. It's like, yeah, kids, stay in school. Don't do drugs.
Ichigo's theme is rapped by John Cena. Oh my god. The fact that that is feasibly a thing that could happen, it just makes that joke better.
Yeah. But yeah, after that plot craziness and the most rocking way of being told to drink all your milk,
Drink it, damn it.
it then starts to calm down a bit, because now that Ichigo knows this, he does start warming up to Rukia, and it does start focus on their developing relationship, including something which is new to this adaptation, and it's something I never knew I wanted until that moment: Rukia and Ichigo training montage.
Yes! Yes! I say that not just because training montage, but man, anything that makes my favorite lead character more awesome.
Indeed, it's just... There are multiple reasons why this works. The first off is that I will give some talk about the visuals of the movie. I'd say, aside from the occasional, like, Warner Brothers color dimming, in order to make it look more serious at moments, they do a pretty good job, like, translating the series visually. Ruki is the only one that looks distinctly different from the anime counterpart, but I can kind of get why they didn't want to translate the hairstyles literally. Like, the only person who comes close to having their literal hairstyle from the manga is Byakuya, and it looks a little bit goofy there. Because, yeah, he does have the free-prong hair clip thing.
Yeah, and let me just say that I'm glad they did not try to emulate Renji's pineapple hair.
Yeah, they just did it as kind of like a push-up ponytail, which, yeah, totally makes sense. They've done enough so that it translates it visually so that you can recognize who a character's meant to be, but it doesn't look like cosplay. Nothing against cosplay, but you get what I mean. It looks like a character's actually wearing something rather than trying to wear a costume, if that makes sense.
I get you. It looks authentic while being sane.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Karen and Yuzu, well, they do look like children, so that they do show up, but they sadly don't have much of a role in the story, which I totally get. It's sometimes working with child actors can be pretty difficult. And they do also get the characters, not just visually, but also how they act as well, because both Ichigo and Rukia do feel genuine to their characters, and like I said, Soda Fukushi and Hanashuki Sakai, at the very least physically, both emulate the characters very well, and it really comes forth in this training montage, which is also where some of the more goofier comedy comes from, because as well as the badass sequence where Rukia and Ichigo are fighting each other using training swords in real life, there's also scenes such as Rukia shooting baseballs at him with a baseball launcher. And my personal favourite is Ichigo dragging a tire behind him, which Rukia is sitting on whilst reading a manga calmly as it does so, which, just looking at that and going, that's just Rukia in a nutshell.
Oh my god. That's brilliant.
Especially when just as we get towards the end of the montage and showing Ichigo's progression, he is now like charging at full speed to the point where he actually goes over a bump and causes Rukia to drop the manga, which
I haven't even seen it and I love it.
And not only is the training sequence great, but after this, the movie finally slows down and we can start developing the character relationships as opposed to just rushing to set up the plot. Such as a moment when Ichigo does actually ask Rukia what life in the Soul Society is like and offers to be her friend. It seems clear that she's someone who's forced to accept what's known as the Reaper codes in this movie and just be serious and not think about that kind of thing. And there's also one cool scene where after a hollow fight, Ichigo is injured, and it's just this really quiet moment where, A, we get the full version of the flashback and reveal that, yeah, Ichigo's mother was killed. And there's this moment where Ishin is just tending to him, wiping him down, because he assumes it's just an accident. And him and Ichigo have a quiet conversation about what happened to his mother, which you didn't really get a lot of in this series, especially in the later arcs.
Yeah, really. Like, the inter-family development didn't really happen, which is sort of a tragedy because there's a lot of untapped potential there, which, to be fair, happens a lot in the manga.
And then we get to the final fight itself, which starts off, like in the original series, with Ichigo's family going to the anniversary picnic, but then the Grand Fisher shows up and, well, they actually do something kind of cool here, because up until now, there've only been like 2 or 3 hollows, and they both look kind of naff. Well, it's the one downside that they're very obviously CG, and again, Soda tries his best to make Ichigo look cool, but it very clearly looks like someone just flailing in midair while CGI moves around him and kind of sort of reacts.
Hey, sounds like me if I was put in the position of fighting something.
But Grand Fisher is clearly where they spent the budget, because they decided, okay, there's no way we can make this look like it fits in with the environment, so we're just gonna make it look really cool and trippy instead. You may remember that Grand Fisher is an incredibly hairy hollow, so they've decided to have it so that its hair is tendrils that kind of flip about and sway and shoot out at targets. It's kind of this incredibly stylized, really creepy look.
I can appreciate that.
That leads into a whole action sequence, which also, it really plays with the idea that humans can't see hollows, because rather than taking place in a forest in the middle of nowhere, it takes place in the middle of a city centre. And the reason people can't see what's going on is that it cuts between Ichigo fighting the Grand Fisher and what every other person sees it as, which is a giant tornado sweeping its way through the middle of the city.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's clever.
Yeah, so that actually makes a really good visual fight, and it is more or less the Grand Fisher fighting what ends up being a 3-man brawl of Ichigo, Rukia, and Ishida. And the reason I brought up Ishida is because, for once, we actually got what we were supposed to have, and Ichigo defeats the Grand Fisher.
Sweet. That is necessary. Thank you, adapters.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, they kind of speed through the connection where he only tries to use the Mother Illusion once, and he then goes, "How dare you!" and then goes back to the fighting, but otherwise... otherwise, it was still a fun fight to watch, and then we get to the other part of the finale where things get interesting. Okay, they do this whole thing where Ichigo is sitting there a little bit exhausted after the Grand Fisher. Rukia runs up to him and says, "Ichigo, you did it." Ishida shows up and he does the typical anti-hero thing of, "Don't get so cocky. I only did that because I want to challenge you later." And they have to, "Yeah, we're rivals, but we know we're friends." And look, that always happens between each other. And then Renji stabs Ishida through a lung. What? It's implied that Ishida survived it, but yeah, visually, you just see Ishida standing there pleasantly nodding. Then a sword pops out of his chest, and Renji rises up out of frame and goes, "The blood of a Quincy will make my sword rust," and kicks him to the ground. And the last we see of Ishida in this movie is him desperately trying to reach his Quincy ring, so it's implied that he's alive, but yeah, Renji just straight up stabbed him.
Wow. Okay. Maybe the movie went a little too... Actually, no. The movie went exactly as hard as it needed to with the whole Soul Reapers actually suck thing. Because, really, that didn't get the proper attention that it deserved.
Indeed. Especially when Renji Byakuya revealed that they really didn't give a toss about the bet. They just assumed Ichigo would be killed by Grand Fisher, so they turn to Rukia and go, "Come on, Rukia, kill the man." "Oh, you're not going to kill the man?" "Right, Renji, kill them both."
Wow.
I mean, admittedly, that sounded a bit too enthusiastic for Byakuya, and admittedly, the acting, as far as I can tell, because, again, I don't speak Japanese, gets this right, "Okay, you can't be cured. Renji, kill them both."
That sounds about right.
And so, this kicks in the fight with Ichigo and Renji. And at this point, I was a bit curious as to what was going to happen, because, well, we were getting close towards the end of the movie, and I was thinking, hang on, there are actual stakes in this now. You can't end it the same way, because what happened in the original series is that Ichigo, he sort of barely managed to hold his own against Renji, kind of. Then Byakuya trounces him, and Rukia agrees to go with them. Because originally, the whole point of them was that they were setting up the new villains for the next arc. But this is the end of a movie now.
Yeah, so this ought to be good.
Indeed. I was hanging my head going, oh god. If they're doing this for the fans, they're probably going to throw out some bull. Like, Ichigo is going to pull out a super move, or is going to go Bankai just because we have to, and we're going to slosh these moments together, and it's going to ruin it from this point on. But no, him and Renji actually have a straight-up brawl, and in fact, like both the manga and the anime, Renji is the only one who actually uses his Sekai, or special move for lack of a better term, in the entire movie. Like, he's the only one who goes raw Zabimaru, and that's it.
Huh. So, they actually play it straight.
Yeah. I really do enjoy this fight. I mean, there is a lot of waifu work involved, which I know some people didn't particularly care for, but I really enjoyed it, especially after, to do a comparison, because I will admit I'd forgotten the exact specifics of how the fight went down. I actually went back and watched the Bleach anime just to compare the two scenes, because there's another thing, if you want to get into Bleach, the anime is now on Netflix with the English dub, which actually has Johnny on Bosch playing Ichigo.
Another thing that is always to be appreciated about Ichigo, even whenever there was almost nothing to appreciate about Ichigo, Johnny on Bosch.
Indeed. But, yeah, I went back and watched the anime, and man, I don't know if to blame this on budget reasons or it being another time, but man, the animation was crap in that fight. I mean, holy crap.
It was. I hate to admit it, but it was. The early animation in Bleach was pants. Even by comparison to Naruto.
Yeah, like, there was an actual minute-long sequence in the fight where Renji is literally just doing the same attack over and over and over again, like, overhead shot, overhead shot, overhead shot, overhead shot, overhead shot. And Ichigo's just standing there blocking it, and I'm just going, funny thing, Ichigo, real life, this happened to me when I went to a medieval reenactment and someone kept using the same move against me over and over again. You know what I did? Blocked him and stabbed the guy. Well, not literally because it's choreographed, but you know what I mean. Just adapt. Like, maybe stab him when he comes back, you know? How are you not?
Like, it can't be understated. Early on in Bleach, the animation quality and actually just sort of the general art quality and style were, that's where that sentence ends.
Yeah. So compared to that, the choreography is great, and, well, the finish I also really like. Some people dislike it because they feel that it just sort of comes out of nowhere and it's inexplicable, but again, going back and watching the original anime, well, it's really anticlimactic in its own because they're making a big deal about how Renji is like a whole other level to Ichigo, and Ichigo's spirit pressure suddenly grows so powerful to the point that Renji can't move, which, yeah, that was unbelievably lame.
Yeah, I forgot that happened. Wow, bullshit even in the early arcs.
Yeah, just Ichigo, he's having problems fighting Renji, the spirit pressure grows, and then it gets to the point where Renji says, I can't move. A plot point that is surprisingly never explored later on, but anyway.
Because it's Bleach.
Yeah, so in this, it is still a little goofy, but one thing that comes across in the choreography a lot better is that Ichigo, he's given it as best as he's got, but it's clear that Renji is still the better fighter than him, that any hit Ichigo gets, it's basically down to pure luck and complete flailing. Like, there's one moment when Renji does this big sweep that knocks him off his feet, and then as he's falling backwards, Ichigo sticks a foot out to kick Renji in the face, but those are like the only lucky hits he can get in. And there's a moment when Renji just throws him into a pile of cars which explode, and then in what is a really cool hero shot that Sota Fukushi really sold is he steps out from the burning cars, puts the sword over his shoulders and goes, you know what, something tells me I can't lose this one. And he's just standing there, sword over his shoulders, backlit by fire, and
Holy crap!
Renji briefly thinks, is this guy invincible? And then he does an attack with Zabimaru. Ichigo bats it away and manages to get one powerful blow on Renji, which knocks him back. And Renji's still standing, but, well, guess. It's a fight with Renji. Guess what happens, Sven?
Well, because it's Renji, I'm guessing he loses.
Well, that, but what is the other constant of Renji?
Oh, let me guess. A weapon breakage?
Yep, he looks like he's about to turn back and strike Ichigo, but he looks at Zabimaru and he sees it's broken in half.
It's Bleach! Of course it happens that way.
And then with that over, at this point, in the manga and anime, Byakuya just cuts Ichigo up. And in the film, it seems to be going that same way. Ichigo, being the kind of guy that he is, picks up his sword and charges straight at Byakuya to do a spinning cut attack. He's doing the follow-through, the sword's back behind him, and then he suddenly freezes on his expressionless horror. And at first, you think it's because Byakuya has disappeared. That is what happens. But then the camera cuts to behind Ichigo, pans back to reveal that Byakuya has actually caught Ichigo's sword and is holding it in place. And as a bonus, guess how many fingers he's using?
Okay, isn't the two-fingered blade block like Aizen?
Yep, or at the very least a two-finger blade hold.
Wow. Okay, that's a reference I can appreciate.
So, that happens, he slices Ichigo, Ichigo gets mad and tries to attack Byakuya again, and Byakuya just easily powers the sword away and cuts Ichigo. Then, it comes to a moment which is a bit weird, but it's, for some weird reason, it's one of my favourite moments in the film. He turns back to Rukia in order to complete the execution, and Ichigo very slowly gets back onto his feet, grunting, "We're unfinished." And there's a sequence that goes on for like a minute. He starts very slowly dragging himself towards Byakuya. He can't even hold his sword in two hands anymore. He's just holding it by the one, and it's dragging on the ground behind him. And he stumbles at first, and everyone looks at him like, okay, he's gonna fall over anytime soon. But he doesn't. Even though he's very haggard of breath, bloody, and can barely stand, he's still dragging himself very slowly towards Byakuya, whilst this big orchestral music starts swelling as he's only running on the fumes of determination at this point, because he desperately wants to end Byakuya. And then Byakuya finally has an expression that goes, okay, you know what, enough of this. And then charges at Ichigo and does a very powerful quick draw cut across the body. And admittedly, because it's live action, not anime, you can't do the full-on blood spray effect, at least not with the budget they have. So what they do instead, they do like a brief blood spray. Rukia yells Ichigo, and then they cut back to him, and I don't know what it is about it, but they use makeup to show that Ichigo now has a massive scar across his face, which runs down to his neck and chest. And my god, I actually showed you a screenshot of this a while back, but yeah, that was Byakuya that landed that.
Somehow I figured. And that is awesome.
Yeah, it's just this really cool looking shot of, and then especially when it cuts to another shot where Ichigo's in the background with that scar, selling it like he's been hit with a truck, and then Byakuya just, in a very slow, quiet, stoic manner, sheathing his sword.
That seems about right.
And from then, it's pretty much Ichigo loses that fight. Because they do the whole same thing in the anime where Byakuya's walking off and Ichigo, despite not having the strength, like, grabs the end of his coattails. And the only difference they make is that Byakuya's actor, as soon as that happens, he stiffens and then gives a smile which says, you motherfucker.
Oh, that's appropriate.
Then, this is something where, in a sense, I should have seen this coming because it hadn't happened in the manga, but they do a slightly different variation on it. Because, like in the manga, at this point, in order to protect Ichigo, Rukia then kicks Ichigo, yelling, "How dare you grab Byakuya's coattails, you lowly human!" She then pushes Ichigo up against a wall, tells Byakuya she's ready to convert, and then there are two main differences. The first is that, unlike the original, where Byakuya destroyed the connection to Rukia's Soul Reaper powers inside Ichigo, because apparently a cut could do that. It's one of those plot details that you didn't question at the start of the series, but then going back...
Yeah, it's another one of those things that is also never explained.
But yeah, this time round, Rukia actively, now that she sees Ichigo's strength, forces Ichigo to give her powers back, sort of placing his hands on the sword in the correct way and shoving the blade in her chest. And this is where I have to give credit again to the physical performance of Hana Shukisaki. To keep up appearances, she's still saying all of this stuff to Ichigo, like how she is annoyed at humans, that they're rowdy and ill-tempered, and if we go through this, you'll get your normal life back and you won't remember anything about this. You'll forget me. But she has her back to Renji Byakuya, and you can see on her face that it's breaking her heart to say this and go through it, but she knows it's literally the only way to save Ichigo at this point.
Man, true to character, I have to give both the actress and company props for doing that. Because if ever there was a thing that needed to be done after the, shall we say, sidecast horror show that was the later arcs of Bleach, it is doing justice to the rest of the lead five.
Indeed, and it's a way that I can see some people not liking it, but I actually like it just because I'm actually slightly impressed at the bravery of... They don't leave it as sequel bait. Like, they don't say, how will Ichigo save Rukia? They make it pretty clear that she'll be pardoned now that she's agreed to go along with them like this, now that she has become a Soul Reaper again. So it's essentially them ending it on this bittersweet note of Ichigo was able to defeat Grand Fisher and sort of hold his own against Renji, but he actually couldn't defeat Byakuya, so Rukia had to save him. And in fact, the last line that Ichigo gets before it fades to white and we get to the last scene is, I was protected again.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, that is a pretty damn bittersweet note to end it on. And considering that, yeah, like I mentioned, a large chunk of this movie has been poorly executed fan service, man, that's some bravery of them.
Yeah, like, holy crap.
And again, especially true to character is that they do leave the possibility for a sequel, but they do make it a full and closed story, and they end on a voiceover by Rukia with Ichigo going back to class, but still having, like, some faint trace memory, especially when he's going through a textbook, is that, Rukia gets a voiceover saying, and so you'll return to your normal life. All trace of my existence in that world will be gone. There will be no memory. Not a trace. I think. And then it ends with Ichigo scrolling through the textbook and finding the original message that she had actually written in the textbook, which is a slight alteration from that one scene, which is Rukia's special message to Ichigo of, make a scene and you're dead. So...
Oh, wow. You know, for all its flaws, I can't believe I'm seeing cleverness in Bleach.
Yeah, and that's pretty much how the film ends, and yeah, I think that kind of sums up. The movie has a lot of flaws, but partially due to the ending, but also due to the bits of character in there, I can't really bring myself to dislike it, really. It does a lot of stupid stuff, don't get me wrong, but it has enough charm and enough character that it stands as somewhere between an okay and good movie. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone who doesn't know anything about Bleach. I'll just throw that out there. If you have no previous knowledge of Bleach, it's gonna be incredibly confusing as a jumping on point.
I mean, yeah, it's sort of like jumping into the Doctor Who American adaptation, the movie they did, without knowing anything about Doctor Who. Oh, you will be so confused. You will be lost.
Indeed, and that happens here, especially when you'll be going, so wait, what was the point of that Orihime character? Was she just there to be like a love interest for Ichigo? Because that went nowhere.
And I mean, to be fair, that is the entire point of her character in canon, so I can't really blame him for that.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, pretty much Orihime's only role is to be worried that Rukia is in a relationship with Ichigo and to get teased by Tatsuki. That's it.
That sounds familiar.
But yeah, with all of those flaws aside, I did still enjoy the movie overall, if only for the ending gauntlet of fight scenes and for reminding me through a combination of character performance and writing what it was I liked about Ichigo at the first place, especially when, like I said, the movie ends with Ichigo getting his ass kicked and not being the superpowered demigod.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see a moment of character vulnerability in Bleach. That's what it comes down to. It's like when Roman Reigns loses a match. It never happens, but it's nice in the alternate universes where it does.
Aside from that one WrestleMania where it wasn't needed, but yeah.
Oh god, don't remind me.
Oh god, but yeah, overall, that's my opinion on Bleach live action. It was an enjoyable ride, even with all of its flaws, and yeah, if you're a Bleach fan, I can't guarantee that you'll like it, but it's definitely worth a watch is all I'll say.
Yeah, and if nothing else, take solace in the fact that it is better than the Sternritter arc.
Oh god, yes. I mean, it's not hard, but definitely yes.
That is a very, very low bar. And just on an ending note, I think, just from what I'm hearing, it's a stupid movie, but charming, and that to me is shonen. Like,
Yeah.
shonen is dumb. It has the plot complexity of a bag of bricks. But when the characters are done right, that's what makes it charming. Like, sometimes you have to have silly, uncomplicated fun. And when Bleach is and was good, it was pretty much unmatched in terms of that, because Naruto took itself seriously. Bleach, oh god. Bleach and taking itself seriously. In the same sentence, it could cause a singularity.
Yeah, and honestly, this is gonna sound weird, but as much as I love the movie, part of me doesn't actually want to see a sequel, because on the one hand, I do kind of want to see these versions of Ichigo and Rukia in future scenarios, but I would hate to see the crunch they do for the later sagas, because...
Oh god! It'd have to be like 18 movies.
Yeah, just introducing all of the characters would be one thing. I mean, oh god, just in the Soul Society, the arc alone, you've got Hitsugaya, Yoriichi, but there's the whole big fight with Byakuya and Renji in round 2, then there's Kinpachi, just...
Yeah, and I mean, I'm interested to see who they cast and what they do with those characters, but let's be honest here. You have, bare minimum, 26 new characters to add.
Yeah, and then possibly having to make Chad and Orihime relevant, and you've only established that they exist in this movie, and oh god.
Yeah, essentially, they left it on a good point if they wanted to just, run a one-shot. I can't believe I just used that comparison, but...
Yeah, well, it actually fits. There are plenty of one-shot manga out there, but yeah, I think it would definitely be better as a one-shot rather than the start of a series, but that's my personal opinion. Unless they make some drastic changes to the Soul Society art, which, honestly, I wouldn't mind, because I think some of the best moments in this movie come from when they do go off script and stop trying to cram moments together in this manga.
I feel you there. Like, take a risk. And on that note, this review was considerably less salty than I thought it would be. And I'm okay with that, because it feels like I finally had closure from that one review where I implied that one of Tite Kubo's decisions was the romantic equivalent of syphilis. So we've expunged ourselves of that.
Yeah, I definitely say it reminded me of some of the more positive aspects of Bleach that I forgot about. Maybe not enough to actually go back to the main series, but...
Well, luckily it's over and we can forget that 2012 to 2016 happened.
Yep, and we don't have to talk about Tite Kubo ever again, unless we did a punchline. Or when Burn the Witch inevitably becomes a full-fledged series.
Oh, God. The pain continues.
With all that, that's this review over and done with, so it's time for us to move on to the final section of the show, which is...
Quick Fire Reviews!
This is the section where we review everything else we've read, watched or played, but within the maximum time limit of 60 seconds. Sven, do you have anything?
No, I do a wrestling recap, but let's be honest, not much has happened. So, go for it.
Okay, I just have one quick thing to review this month.
Xenoblade Chronicles 2 DLC, Torn of the Golden Country. I really enjoyed this as like a DLC expansion quest. It was a prequel, but it's a prequel that's done right, in the sense that it's not there to explain all the copious details of the backstory. It's more there to give you an idea of who these characters that appear in the flashbacks were like as people, and I've got to say, going on an adventure with Lorna and seeing her highs and lows made me care a lot more about those flashbacks where Lorna died, thus motivated the villains. Also, again, we talked about brave endings. Holy crap, that ending, just saying, it also makes some future points in the original Xenoblade 2 a lot more powerful, so... yeah, if you're a fan of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, cannot recommend picking it up enough, especially when you have the option of both the digital download and physical release.
Nice. I mean, it's not relevant to me because I have no access to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but I'm glad it was good.
And I would review Dragon Ball Fighters, or I never know how it's pronounced. It's either Fighters or Dragon Ball Fighter Z, but anyway,
Fighters.
Yeah, it's a really bad visual pun, but yeah, long story short, I'm enjoying it so far, but the reason I'm not doing the full quickfire review thing is that I only got the game like 2 days ago.
That's fair enough.
So I can't really have a full impression apart from it's a fighting game. I seem to enjoy it. I suck, but I enjoy it. And with that, yeah, I guess it's a little bit anticlimactic, but that's the end of this month's podcast. Thank you to everyone for listening. And again, if you have any opinions on Bleach or drinking milk to the sound of rock music, then by all means talk about them in the comments section. That's what it's there for. But until next time, I've been the Jonin Monkey.
And I've been Sven the Crusader, reliving my past in more than one way this month. Speaking of which, maybe look forward to writing from me soon. Bye!
That was Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show hosted by the Jonin Monkey and Sven the Crusader. If you feel that you've been the subject of slander or that your copyright has been misused, please PM me and I'll try and get round to fixing it as soon as possible. We also welcome any comments, be it feedback or your own viewpoints on any of the things we've discussed. Until next month, have fun kids!